why my record deals never worked. This is something I've been thinking about for a very, very long time. And it's a hard thing to kind of distill into words, but what I can impart, I hope, will be useful, especially to aspiring artists, especially to people who are maybe looking to kind of enter that traditional landscape of the music industry through record labels and managers, PR agents, all that kind of stuff. But what I can tell you for me is that the whole reason I began music is because I recognized it as a really profound, beautiful way of expressing yourself as an artist, right? Expressing ideas, expressing dimensions of yourself that ordinarily you wouldn't really be able to speak about or have any understanding of. And yet through music or through art, through any artistic medium really, you have this innate ability to learn about yourself and to kind of to grow, right, in a very profound, unusual way. So for me, that was always the reason for doing any of this. That was the reason for studying, 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day, playing guitar, studying music theory, learning how to write songs, learning how to perform, right, learning how to sing, all of these things. That was the reason for putting the time in and getting better and trying to be great. And for me, once I kind of entered the echelon of the business part of it, where now you have someone in the business world kind of coming to you and trying to take what you've done all your life, take your sensibility and your taste and kind of your convictions and bottle them into this kind of perfect product, which then hopefully they can sell to the masses, right? There's always been something implicit in that that's been a problem to me. And it's not the concept of someone having to do that at some point, because the reality is the reality. We're musicians, we're artists, but at a certain point, if you want to make a living from your art, you have to have some understanding of the business. You just have to, right? And I don't have any resentment for anyone that tries to do that or the concept of that. I really have no problem with that. The problem for me comes with when people are putting their own ego and their own pride and their own kind of insecurity ahead of everything else, ahead of the ability to make money, ahead of the creative choices, ahead of the aesthetic of the project. When they're blatantly just kind of walking around with this power dynamic that they think is normal. And I've been in situations where people, and I'm not saying they're bad people, but I've been in situations with people where you're having a business dinner and they try to order food for you, right? And they try to kind of play that card that they're like, I know what's good for you, I know what's best for you, and you need to listen to me. And even if it's a very subtle thing, I really have a problem with that, because that has nothing to do with why I started, right? I didn't start making music and dedicating my life. I didn't dedicate my life to doing this so that at some point I could have a business dinner with someone who's trying to order food from me, who's trying to tell me that my music needs to be a certain way because that's the way they like it, and that's the way everyone else is going to like it because they like it. That is very, very frustrating to me. And I noticed that the higher up the ladder in the music industry I got, the more insidious those problems became. So that's one thing I would just impart to anyone who may be watching this, any aspiring artists. Just have an understanding that if your goal is to enter the arena of the traditional industry where you want to get a record deal, you want to open for some big acts, you want to start making money, you want to start being an international kind of an international artist that has this career with their jet setting and all this stuff, I want you to know that there are certain things that are going to happen that you're going to have to be okay with. And they're not all going to be easy. They're going to be pretty frustrating and pretty silly. But it depends on what you want to do. If someone is watching this and they want to be Rihanna or they want to be Beyonce or Justin Timberlake, I would say you have to at least get comfortable with the idea that that is going to happen. It's just a necessity. It's it's going to happen because when you're a superstar like that, or when you're aiming to be a superstar like that, there are so many moving pieces. There are so many things that are happening at any given moment that you kind of have to surrender to the fact that you're going to have to deal with a lot of ego. You're going to have to deal with a lot of absurdity. You're going to have to deal with it. That's just kind of how it is. And if that's what you want, I would say go for it. But for someone like me, or for maybe other aspiring artists who may be watching this video, I would say there are other ways. And that's mainly the reason why I wanted to talk to you about this. For me, I don't feel the need to appease anyone's ego in a situation of power, right? Or who's in a position of power. If someone's in a position of power and you're working with them, I feel no need to appease their ego. I want to work with people who understand that, yes, if we're working together, there's going to be a collaboration, right? There's going to be give and take. But ultimately, I'm the artist, and I have to be comfortable with the creative aspect of everything that we're doing. And I feel like if you are going to enter the industry through record labels and through dealing with all of the things that musicians have been talking about for decades, you're going to deal with those things. So for me, where my head is at right now, honestly, is through the podcast, I've had really, really eye-opening, insightful conversation with people who know what they're talking about, people who have been around for decades, people who have road-tested kind of experience. And what I've come to learn is for a new artist to make a living, a comfortable living, you really only need between 2,500 and 3,000 true fans who are willing to spend $20 a year on one piece of merchandise that you create. That's it. If you want to be able to make a living, that's what you need. And in the scheme of things, that's almost nothing. Now, it's difficult, for sure. It's difficult to get that true fan base of 2,500 to 3,000. But I think ultimately, the rewards far outweigh the alternative, which is being locked into an agreement where you essentially have no say in what your creative identity is. You are forced into a situation where you must appease the ego of your superior. If that's the kind of life that you'd like to live, I would say I wish you the best. But for me, personally, I can't do that. So I think, in a way, looking back on all the experiences I've had signing different deals throughout the years, I feel like it's been pretty fortunate as far as I've been lucky that I haven't signed a deal that I wasn't able to get out of, because that happens all the time, and that is probably the worst situation any musician could be in, being tethered to a business agreement with a record label or a production company where you're not able to escape, and they're not interested in putting anything out until it's okayed by the higher-ups. That's a pretty dangerous place to be. It's a pretty scary and frustrating and kind of maddening place to be, honestly. So where my head is at now, as far as a business model, is precisely what I just mentioned. I'm building a subscriber base. I encourage all the aspiring artists watching this to build a subscriber base. And all you have to do is hit your marks in terms of the numbers, and you will be able to make a living. Now, for me, it's very almost cathartic to think of, there have been so many opportunities for me to get involved with projects or companies that sort of could have completely ruined my career. And I only know this now, looking back, but at the time I had no idea. So I would say for me, getting back to the main title of this video, the reason why my record deals never worked is because people who work in the music industry, they have a tendency of being egomaniacs, and they have a tendency of requiring you to appease their ego. And I'm not interested in that. To me, it's always been about the art. I'm not interested in appeasing another grown man's ego or grown woman's ego. It's just not, it's not interesting to me. It's not fun. I don't want to do that. So now I can look back and say, I'm actually glad about that. I'm glad that it didn't work out just because I have some understanding of what is required to make a living as an artist, and it's not beholden to what they said it was. It doesn't depend on being signed to a huge company with a lot of money and a lot of opportunity. If the opportunity is not there in front of you, you have the ability now with YouTube, with social media, to create the opportunity. So I want to impart that to all the aspiring artists. I hope there was something of value in this for you. And until next time, I hope this helped.